Hi guys, welcome back to Strength Stories with Jory. Today we have on Oregon physical therapist Scott Johnson. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, brother. How you doing?
Good. So I wanted to bring you on because you're definitely one of the people that I've learned the most from over my 10 years as a trainer. So before we get into some questions, maybe give the audience a quick background.
So I grew up in Michigan, went to Grand Valley State University, exercise science, wanted to get a PhD in exercise physiology, didn't do well on the GRE because I had some published research and I thought I was going to be going to a PhD program because I was supposed to be kind of like a shoe-in. It sounds like that movie with Jack Black. Um,
Orange County. I was literally just watching that with Hazel the other
yeah,
day.
whenever tell the story, I'm like, I swear that movie was about me.
Like you
Um,
said, shoeing.
he said Shuen, yeah. So I ended up not getting in, and then I moved to Colorado, ended up going to PT school, went out there to do some prerequisites, work at a PT clinic for an old mentor. Um, Moved to North Carolina for grad school, moved back to Colorado, and then kind of worked there for a few years. And I poked around the country doing travel PT and working different jobs. Trying to see where I wanted to kind of settle in. Settled in
Mhm.
Montana for a few. I think I was there like
Yeah,
five
3,
years.
4 years, something like that. Yeah.
Then opened a practice there. Saw a little bit of an opportunity to work with strength athletes. Saw a little bit of hole in the community as far as like education, and because I did CrossFit, do
Mhm.
CrossFit, and saw a hole in the sports medicine kind of the gap between strength and conditioning and medicine.
Mhm.
Um, and I had a patient come in and say that I was doing a clean and I went to my orthopedic surgeon and he asked what I was cleaning. And I was like, that's somebody's got to help somebody out here. So
Very knowledgeable person. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what made me want to open practice first. Um, and then, we got that up and running. And at that time, I it's just like time to move on. And we
Mhm.
left things with Jeremy, and then he's done a great job with the company still. And I
Mhm.
moved back down to Colorado, worked with my old mentor, and we grew a practice from, I think we were in like a double wide trailer, like
Mhm.
right next to a gym, and like not like a double wide trailer, like the modular
Yeah.
homes that you would see. And we grew the practice. I think when I joined, there was, I think there's five of us. And by the time I left, I think there was like 10 or 11 of us.
Mhm.
A couple of years later, then I ended up moving to Bend and worked for a company here for about 6 months, and it was the same old thing.
Mhm.
So ended up opening practice with a buddy, and we're about 3 years in now.
That's
Just opened
awesome.
up a pretty cool place. Got a full, we got like a 2,000 square foot gym in the back with
Mhm.
rogue racks and rogue everything. Got ourselves a little sports science station there
Mhm.
with dynamometers and force decks and BFR. We've got a guy that comes in and does metabolic testing, so like VO2 and
That's cool. So pretty comprehensive.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's
Mm.
I always thought I'd go back and get a PhD, and I got all the stuff I would want to do with a PhD in my business. So it's like
That's
doesn't make
awesome.
sense to go back and get a PhD.
So honestly, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about actually deals back when you were here in Billings. Because to give a quick story here, when you first moved here, um, a friend of mine introduced me to you because I had been having back issues for years. I'd had this like hip problem, and it would lead to some back stuff. And so I literally visited you for like 2 sessions, I feel like, and we did a bunch of dry needling, and like my back pain went away for years, and that was awesome in the moment. However, one of the things that I realized that it did for me is it made me think like, okay, just dry needling is the answer versus like
Sure.
anything else. Like, and just that classic trap of like a passive modality works for someone, whether that's a mental reason or physical, and you just get attached to that thing. And again, I still think dry needling is obviously very valuable. Like, and I still recommend it to people sometimes if it feels like they need it, and I'll send them out to a PT or a chiro. A lot of times, Jeremy.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I just want to talk about kind of how people tend to over rely on these passive modalities. Like obviously they can be helpful in the short term, but how do you see as far as people sometimes just getting attached too much to that passive modality versus realizing that there's other ways to continue to progress?
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes like there's a time and a place for passive modalities. I don't
Mm.
want to shit on anything, like
No, yeah. There's not to
needling,
say that they're
just,
not useful, but
yeah. And it's content. It's always like not, it's always an and, right?
mhm,
This can decrease some of the tone in your soft tissue so we can load you so you can do the things that we need to do.
mhm,
Um, I think I was thinking about this today, actually. I was like, long story short, I was testing somebody's strength with our dynamometers, and we were testing his quad, and like, dude squats like 400 pounds, but he kept having patellar tendonitis, and I'm just like, he had seen an acupuncturist, and he'd done massage and done all these things, and I'm just like, he had some weird, like, not crazy, but just like eccentric control was not awesome, or not what you'd
mhm,
expect from somebody that squats 400 pounds.
mhm,
But we did some dynamometer testing. We tested his, like, a longer quad, but just like
mhm,
isometric quad at 90 degrees of knee extension. And he had a 23% asymmetry between his two
mhm,
legs,
mhm,
um, which is like pretty significant, right? Like,
mhm,
I wouldn't expect that. So like the easy thing, and this is what I would have done in the past, is we know like some acupuncture and some massage has been helpful. So you just do that and then you just send them off on their
mhm.
way. But I can't detect if somebody's squatting that much, if I'm doing like a break test, like a
Yeah.
manual muscle test, like I can't break that anyways.
Mhm,
So being able to have that comprehensive thing or comprehensive tool is very helpful.
mhm,
So to kind of bring it kind of back around, I think like the past modalities and being too reliant on them, I think
mhm,
partially due to people's inability to endure a little bit and
mhm,
be just put in the effort to do some of the things that really are going to make some meaningful change.
mhm,
And sometimes it's because they don't have access to stuff like I was just talking about,
mhm,
or they're just impatient. I think that's a lot of times what it is impatience.
mhm. Yeah, and it's something even now when I have people where if let's say we're dealing with some sort of tendonitis thing and I refer them out for that dry needling, I even honestly try to coach the language at this point where I explain to them like, this isn't gonna be the only thing we're gonna do. Like it's not a this isn't like just like you just keep doing this forever and it fixes it. What I try and tell them is like, this will hopefully put your nervous system in a place where we can now train and get to like
Right.
a more training adaptation. I said it's like sometimes we can have the right exercise, but if your nervous system's just freaking out, like it's not going to matter. Like we need to get that nervous system calmed down enough that we can make a difference. And the more I've read into like, the myofascial pain syndrome and all these other like tension myositis and stuff, so much that does seem to come down to of like, if you feel comfortable going into the movement, it's probably a good chance it's going to feel good versus if you're already apprehensive going into it, the odds of you having pain with it are still pretty high. So it's like, if we can just find some way to again, like, calm that down just a little bit and, like, cool, like, now let's just train basically.
Yeah, I mean, like that's part of it with I mean, the massage gun or
Mhm,
a like foam rolling or lacrosse ball. Unless there's some other literature out there that I'm not privy to, which is possible because I don't read all the research,
mhm,
probably reading a little bit less than I used to.
mhm,
That's what it's doing. It's kind of down regulating the CNS,
yeah,
so you can put a little bit of load on there, or it's not even necessarily load, but like neuromuscular control. That's even a thing.
yeah. Well, and it's even and this would be very much paraphrasing because it's probably, like, 7 years since you said this, but I still remember you telling me back in the day on how, like, when you compared, like, dry needling versus acupuncture versus, E-stim or, any of those other or what am I trying to say? I can't think of the old one where you just wave the wand around somebody, but,
Oh, ultrasound.
ultrasound, there we go. Like, basically, whether or not it worked came down to whether or not the person believed it was gonna work leading into it. Like, if
Yeah,
they
there's
felt
a
like this is what's gonna be the fix for me, weird, it tended to work for them.
Yeah, and I think that's with most things in life, right? Like
Mhm.
there's the belief response is a big deal, you know.
It is.
Um, and I would say like any of those tools will work. It's just like kind of what you do after them to how long it's going to work or what like the big outcome's going to be. So yeah,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
loading afterwards, training
Mhm.
afterwards. That's the big deal.
Mhm. No, exactly, and that's even, so I was dealing with someone recently who's coming back from a back thing, I was even explaining to her on how, like, we're probably underloading her right now, but I'm going literally just based off of like what she feels comfortable doing. Because again, yeah, if she goes into it like nervous and expecting that something's going to hurt, like it's probably going to hurt. Versus, maybe we're 20 pounds less than that, and it doesn't even feel like she's doing anything, but it also doesn't make her apprehensive. And as a result, like she doesn't have. I think with her, we were dealing with more of a hip thing. Like her hips just feel better as long as we stay within a range that doesn't feel scary to her at the time. I told her eventually we're gonna have to increase this, but now we're just basing it on feel.
Yeah, well, and so I think people underestimate if you add, like for her, if you add 2.5 pounds every week,
Mm,
she's that before she knows it, she's quadrupled her load, and she didn't even recognize that there's any um,
exactly.
like any increase in, I guess, increase in load.
Yeah.
And so that makes her a little bit more comfortable, and it's just like, again, it's progressive overload, right?
Yeah. I know, and
But
I was trying to give people that chart of like, here's the line at which you have pain. It's like as long as we can stay below this line, that line gets a little bit higher, and now you can tolerate this, and then it becomes here. But it's like if you just keep blowing past it, that line not only doesn't get higher, it actually gets lower. And now it's like it used to take 100 pounds to bug it, now it takes 90, and then it takes 80, and then eventually you're just really weak because you can't do anything without triggering a pain response.
yeah, and for sure, I would also kind of add to that. I think over the last probably like about 3 to 5 years, I've kind of been like pinning people down a little bit more, and saying like, "Oh, that hurts." Like, okay, tell me more. I've been asking
Yeah.
a lot more questions because I think often people, at least in the rehab world, when people have pain, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you see it as well, it's like, oh, I think that hurt. It's like, well, did it hurt, or do you think it hurt, or you were expecting it to hurt,
Hmm.
or is it just your muscle working and you weren't
Yeah. Well, or even it's
you
like, does
haven't
does
felt
it
that
feel like
before.
a little pain or does it feel like a threatening amount of pain? Like there's a difference between that too. Like explain something like, yeah, like a 2 or 3 out of 10 that doesn't feel threatening, that's probably just going to be part of your rehab process, like as far as the muscle getting back there. But it's like, yeah, if it's a 5 or you just feel nervous about that, then that's probably going to trigger a different response.
Yeah, and I think being apprehensive about some things, I think is part of it. And I don't know, it's I've seen a lot more of that of recent.
Mm,
We've got more language to kind of have that conversation. And I think sometimes that pendulum swings a little bit too far of like central nervous system and like
mm,
fear and um, threat, and sometimes it's just like, sometimes you just need to just do some hard work, and
yeah.
you're gonna have a little discomfort with it. It's like progressive overload. If you've ever done a 1 rep max, it doesn't feel awesome. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
but you need that stress on your tissue to to make change, and I think that psychologically that will help as well.
Mm,
So I think of recent, I've been just trying to put more load on people, ask more questions, and try to get clear with what they're really saying or what they're really feeling.
mm,
Um, I know I've said to you over the past, like when I was doing a little bit of programming for you, I kind of
mm.
want to know, like, man, I wish I could be in your body and feel what you're
I know.
feeling.
I know. It'd
It
be
just
so
make
helpful
it,
so many times.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be really helpful to be able to do that and to really feel what people are feeling.
Yeah. Well, even just because that is definitely one of the hardest things is when we're even talking pain scales. Because you'll ask someone, okay, what are you feeling on a 1 to 10? And they're like an 8. And it's like, I don't think you know what a true 8 is. Like you're talking to me normally, you're not sweating, you're not grimacing with every movement. Like that's not a real 8, but to that person it is. It's just maybe they've
Yeah.
just experienced less pain in their life or whatever it is. But so trying to figure out like, and then same point, you have the guy who can barely sit down. He's like, oh, it's like a 2. And you're like, okay, that's also probably not a 2. So trying to get an accurate number is really hard. Like you said, if you could actually experience what that person's experiencing, it would give you a lot better gauge of like, is this safe or is this a lot?
Yeah, and that's where like I said earlier, pinning people down a little bit more on like,
Mm,
well, let's be a little bit more clear. And I think sometimes people are just going through the motions of life, and it's like, yeah, it's like an 8. It's like,
yeah.
give them a little bit of context of what an 8 would probably feel like.
Mm,
And it's the same thing with like training, right? Like
mhm.
an RPE. Oh,
Yeah,
it's like an 8.
exactly.
It's like, I could have did like 50 more, but it was an eight.
Yep.
It's like,
See,
let's
and
show
on
you what a
those,
one rep max looks like.
I know on those anymore, I love doing like instead of like 4 sets of 8, trying to get an RPE, it's like, okay, let's just do 3 sets of 6, we get a little bit of moderate volume, and I'm like, "All right, now just go for it." And it's amazing how many times they'll get like 23 reps, and it's like, so you see how these sets of 6 we're not doing shit, like you're like at -17 RPE, like it's not
Yeah.
doing anything yet, but it's like until someone knows what it feels like to truly exert, they don't really, I mean, you can't know, I guess.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. So is that something that you do frequently? Just kind of put people to exhaustion, just like,
A
hey,
a
I want you to feel what it feels like to be at failure, so you know what this burn feels like.
Yeah, honestly, one of the easiest ones I do is I will have them do, and this is almost always like one of our first sessions. I'll just have them do like an easy bar bicep curl or dumbbell if they're not strong enough for the easy bar. But I'll just have them go, and I'm like, okay, stop when you think you're done. And then as soon as they hit, they're like, okay, that's means I think I can do. And like, okay, now keep going. And I'm just like, you don't stop now until I say it. And so we just do one really hard balls out set. And like, I still
Hmm.
think of one girl, she was going to stop at like 15. She got like 43 reps once I started pushing her. And it's like, because again, like when we're doing like say deadlift, squat, bench, stuff like that, we're not going to push those nearly to failure nearly as often. But it's like when we're
Right.
doing just a straight muscle building exercise, I'm like, this is where I want you within a rep or two of that every single time we do it. And it is kind of a good lesson if someone realizes like, oh, like that's what that actually feels like. Like me talking while I'm doing bicep curls is not doing shit because I'm not getting anywhere close to that point. It's like I need you within like 2 to 3 reps of that feeling.
Right. That stimulus is just not
Yeah.
enough to make that
So I use that as a
needle
beginning
move.
tool a lot of times, but I do love just having them do just one balls out set at the end of a workout or at the end of a, 2 or 3 sets for volume or something like that, or actually for like split squats. I give a lot of people just literally one set because they just find it a lot easier to push really hard knowing that they don't have to do another one afterwards. And I have a couple
Sure.
girls where like the one girl's gone from like on safety bar split squats like 110 for 8, she's doing now like 170 for 10, and we've literally been doing just one set a week. And she's just steadily making progress just from one
Was
set a week
she
because she's actually pushing.
is she like new lifter or
No,
what's
she's been
her?
with me for a couple of years, but now to be fair, we also do like safety bar back squats on another day and we do deadlift. So it's not like this is her only leg volume, but we found like for her for split squats, she doesn't have to do more than one set a week to make progress. Like we just keep pushing one hard set every week, with deloads occasionally, but and it's just
Sure.
been steadily going up now for months. Yeah, I've
That's
used it
nice
with
to know.
I think it
Like,
works a lot better on something like a split squat where they have to do both sides because it's so easy to sandbag a split squat.
so how many years of lifting has she been doing?
She's probably been with me now, including like 9 months of pregnancy and like a postpartum thing. I think we've been for like a little over 3 years.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
about year and a half of that has been like really hard training, maybe a little more.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
she's
mean,
not like beginner, but also not like advanced.
right. So she's got plenty of room for that floor to go up.
Yeah. And that's also too, yeah, like obviously as she becomes more advanced, like maybe that's not going to work as well. And I even told her that like eventually we might push where we really push the safety bar split squat and try and hit 200 just 'cause that's a cool number. I said like to do
Yeah.
that, we'll probably start putting in like at least some easy volume work on a second day. But for now, it's like as long as it's working, I see no reason to change it. Like we're just gonna keep milking one set a week as long as we can.
Yeah. As little as possible, as much as necessary, right?
No, exactly. One thing I kind of wanted to go back on too, when we were talking about people's comfort level with lifts. Tony Gentilcore is this really it was like an article I read of his one time where he talked about how so many women, like if he gave them like a 95-pound barbell, they're like, oh, I can't lift that, I'll get bulky. But he gives them like a 100-pound kettlebell, and now magically they can lift that all day, and there's no concerns about that.
Hmm.
Um, I do think too that's why we see a lot of things with like reverse hypers or back extensions or stuff like that. And, those seem to be usually pretty pain-free movements. I wonder how much that just comes from a lack of trepidation leading into it. Like I don't think there's necessarily anything magic about the reverse hyper for back pain. I mean, I've used it for a lot of people with back pain. It seems very helpful, but it's like I
Hmm.
don't know that it's the implement itself versus it's not the barbell, and then that just makes that person feel more comfortable. And again, ultimately, what we're just trying to do is trying to get some work in for that low back and hamstrings and glutes or whatever that
Hmm.
doesn't threaten the nervous system. And reverse hyper seems to do that pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like your question is, do I think is it the
Yeah.
barbell kind of scary, or
Well, or is it
is that
just,
what
yeah,
you're
like, so
asking?
how much is the exercise magic versus how much it is just that person goes into it without trepidation. As a result, they're able to like get some sort of stimulus for the same
Oh.
muscles without like triggering a response?
I mean, I think it's both. Like
Mm,
I I've seen I've seen people that tolerate reverse hypers or don't tolerate reverse hypers, but will
mm,
tolerate like a back extension.
mhm.
And it's like not the same thing, but it's essential. I mean, essentially you're doing hip
Yeah,
extension
just
and
something else is just moving. Yeah,
yeah. And why that happens, like I don't know, but I generally try to do the thing that
doesn't hurt.
that doesn't hurt. And then we can
Yeah.
move to sometimes the thing that I actually want to do.
Mm,
There's a lot of times where, for instance, like if somebody is afraid to deadlift or afraid to squat,
mm,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing some goblet squats,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
or there's or just like I think it's one of those things where it's also kind of progressive overload on the technique, right? Or the
Mm,
movement. So give
mm,
them a kettlebell that's a little less scary than, or a dumbbell or a kettlebell, a little less
mhm.
scary than a barbell. And to me, like a safety bar squat, I've been training for decades, and safety bar is a little bit more threatening to me because it's got more things. I'm
Yeah,
used to just a barbell.
just straight. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think there's a part of that yeah, it's like what feeling comfortable is important. Feeling the right muscles work for each exercise is important.
Mm,
Um, and doing the one that the person will do. Let's
yeah.
be consistent with, right?
So on a similar thing there, when you're saying as far as like feeling the right muscles, that's another thing where I've changed my thought process a little bit. So I used to be like Mr. Like everything is form, so much of injury risk is just form. Like if you have bad form, you're going to get hurt versus if you have good form, you're not going to get hurt. And now I tend to ride that line of I still think form matters, but not in the same way. Like obviously like form matters in terms of like maybe your strongest output is going to come with a certain technique. So I think it definitely matters there. And it's not that I necessarily think that bad technique causes injuries as much now as if let's say your squat variation has been predominantly loading hips and now you have bad technique on a set and it puts an excess strain on the low back and let's say it
Mhm.
hurts your back, it's not necessarily that the bad technique caused that as much as that area wasn't as prepared. And so it's just more open to feel having an issue when it does have to be the thing that's like taking on the brunt of the load, if that makes sense.
Right.
Um, and it's interesting because I know early on, I think you were already there, God, years ago. I feel like when we talked, and it took me years to get to the point to realize like, yes, form matters, but just maybe not in the way we always thought, or like the way I always thought in terms of just being like super technique dominant.
Yeah, I'm so my business partner is like very about he's a great he's a very good coach. He's
Mhm,
well beyond his years when it comes to like coaching. He really
mhm,
is. He does a great job. Um, and we used to work together. That's how we met. And he was an aide, and I was PT at that particular business.
mhm,
But he had come from college, and he was a CrossFit coach, and he took it very serious. And I kind of always told him, I was like, this person just needs to move their body. I don't really care how it's coming. And it's like,
mhm,
yeah, we're not doing a what, like most of these people aren't hitting like one rep max or even 70% of their one rep max or even 50% of the one rep max with a lot of
mhm,
the rehab stuff that we're doing.
mhm,
We are just giving them a little bit of exposure. So it's like, yeah, I mean, when it comes to somebody that's high level, yeah, I guess we trying to define what high level necessarily means, but right, it's like, but when you're starting to hit a little bit higher loads relative to your body
mhm.
or relative to your strength or your training age, I think technique matters for how much force you can produce or
Oh, for sure.
not bleeding any energy or
Mhm,
being more efficient. I would say with the more like functional fitness kind of craze that's happened,
mhm,
name CrossFit F45.
mhm,
Um, gosh, there's 1,000 of them.
mhm.
I think the volume generally matters more than the technique.
Oh, for
And then
sure.
it's like, and now you're moving not efficiently and at a high volume. I think that
Mhm.
is more likely to lead to an injury versus
Well, and
like poor
that's
technique.
That's what I try to explain to people now. Is like, to me, like the form matters now more when it matters. So like, because we've all seen that person who well, my wife's like this. My wife deadlifts with like the worst rounded spine on her sumo deadlifts, but she has no issues with it. She's deadlifted like 340, almost three times her body weight. So
Yeah,
it's not inherently injurious, but again, she's also like she's deadlifted that way for years and built up with gradual volume. So where her spine has built resilience in that position, that's different than the person who's, always deadlift with the perfect back and then they go for that stupid
right.
1 RM attempt with terrible form. It's, have you built up the exposure to justify that position essentially?
Yeah, and just like you said, it matters when it matters, right? Like
Mhm.
the whole thing of, you know, well, I guess it's not the whole thing. It used to be like posture is everything, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden there was this like new wave of like posture doesn't matter. It doesn't like
Yeah.
there's no correlation to pain, and it's like true until it is, and
Exactly.
it's like okay, I'm flexion lumbar, like I've got some back pain and it's flexion intolerant. So I do not
Yep.
tolerate bending over, whether that be deadlifting. So from my um, kind of profession, I'll see people like doing CrossFit. So
Mm.
deadlift and toes to bar and rowing and kettlebell swings, like a clean
Mm.
injury, like all that stuff is like hinged. And if you have a disc injury and you don't tolerate flexion very well, and then you
Mm.
like, yeah, it doesn't matter, but I can tell you this: every time you bend over, your back hurts or you get sciatica. It's like
Yeah.
now it matters. So how are we going to
Mhm.
deal with that now that it does matter?
No, exactly. It becomes a very like semantics based argument. Like, yes, you can have bad posture and not have pain, but like I said, if you are flexion intolerant and you're hurting because of back pains, it's kind of hard to deny that for that person at that moment, posture is correlated with their pain. It doesn't mean it's always going to be. Like I said, after a few weeks, stuff heals and they'll probably be fine and they'll be able to go back to that as long as they've made that kind of made that up emotionally and like accepted the fact that they can move again. But yeah, like they're I don't know. I'm kind of rambling a little bit on there now, but it's like I said, it's just not as important as I always thought it was. It's more
Yeah,
case by case basis, which is how fitness should be for the most part, anyways. Almost everything is case by case basis.
I think that's life, though, right?
Yeah.
Most of life is case by case and context dependent.
Mm,
We've got some principles that we try to build on that we know is true, and then we go
yeah.
from there.
Plus, I was even explaining to someone the other day because I had a new client who's got some autoimmune stuff, and she was curious like how I've dealt with that in training. And honestly, even like I look at all these things now, whether it's like autoimmune or pregnancy or a lot of these things, like we'll make some small adjustments, but for the most part, everything is just symptom based. Like if I have someone who's got autoimmune disease, it doesn't mean I'm going to change all their programming to like low volume, tempo work, pauses, and stuff like that. It's probably where I'm going to bias my programming. But
Hmm.
as long as they're responding well, like we're going to basically just train like normal. And, now if it's like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little worn down, yes, we make that adjustment, but it doesn't mean like we just throw out every single principle we have just because they have certain thing.
Yeah, and from I guess I would probably end up dealing a, a lot of times, but not all the time, with clients who have comorbidities or multiple things going on. But I mean, I look at it and if I know it's going to matter, then we might have a conversation about it. But again,
Mm,
like I'm generally not. I try to make it as basic as possible.
mhm,
I think that's why we do a good job because it's like, do you have full range of motion of your joint?
mm,
Yes. Okay. Are you strong enough to tolerate the full range of motion? No, that's where we're going to start. Let's
yeah,
do some range of motion and some strength through that range of motion and make you tolerate it. And
yeah,
I think too many people try to get fancy with things and take all and just try to be too smart. It's like
mhm. Well, it's
it's still a
exactly it's like
human in front of you. Like just do the basics.
regardless of like what they're coming in with, ultimately all training boils down to is like finding where the person's at and finding a way to do more than they currently are doing and keep building on there. Like that's training for
Bingo.
everyone, regardless of what it is. And it's like I still think back to when I first was a physical therapy assistant doing my internships, and like I won't
I
name the
totally
place I was
forgot
working
that.
at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you were a physical therapy assistant. Oh,
I know everyone does.
uh,
um, But, like, I still remember, like, one of the first places I did an internship job, and it was literally like, "Oh, total knee. Here's this printout from 1985. This is what total knee does." And it's like, Is it though? Like, yeah, that's one of the things I always appreciate when I did some shadowing stuff out of your place is like you had like a base idea of like where we're probably going to start, but then it's like, okay, how did that actually feel? And then we adjust based on that. It's not just handing someone a printout and like every total knee is there. And that's again, that's all good training. Is like actually taking time to ask the person the question, like, did that make your pain feel better? Did it make it feel worse? Like, how did you feel doing that? And then adjusting if you have to. Like,
Yeah,
it's
test
kind of
and
crazy just
retest.
assume that you're, yeah, just back pain is this.
Yeah, I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I guess not the people I try to be around.
No, I think it's a lot
But
better now, but
it's a lot better. I still think that there's some lacking, at least from my field.
mm,
Probably your field.
oh, yeah, for sure.
Um, I think too many people forget that every profession there's a bell curve for
Mm,
the profession, you know. So try to not throw the baby out with the bathwater with any profession because there are
mm,
people that excel and there are some people that are not excelling.
yeah.
They're in the 25th percentile, and it is what it is.
Well, it's definitely you see it's kind of like the Instagramization, if that's a word, of fitness where and you
Hmm.
see this especially in rehab too, where it's like, "Here, here's one exercise to fix your back." And it's like,
Yeah,
based off of what? Like there's 7,000 reasons someone could have back pain. The odds that you're going to nail it with one perfect like McGill sit up or whatever is pretty low. It's like I said, there's things we'll probably try based on what the person's describing, but just
sure.
assumption like you only need one shoulder exercise and one low back exercise and one knee exercise, and you can fix everything.
Yeah, or that there's like some it used to be this thing with in the rehab world where it was like, oh, I've got the secret exercise. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. There's just like it's just an exercise. There's a
Yeah.
thousand of them to do the same thing. And how you dose it and how you give it to other people is
Yeah. Well, even like, I took FMS, God, now like 6 years ago, something like that. And I still learned some valuable things from it. And it was helpful to a degree in training. But the idea that just because someone didn't pass this one random push-up test meant now I can't do any pressing exercises with them until they're at least a 2 on that. It's like, I mean, initially I followed that religiously and it was dumb. Like it's like,
yeah,
why wouldn't I instead work to find like coming back to what you were talking about, like reduce range of motion or lower intensity or something like that, or find a way to still incorporate some sort of pushing exercise. It's insane to think I'm just going to take out this one entire pattern just because they didn't pass one arbitrary test. To me, it's
right.
almost it's kind of lazy coaching, assuming that this one test is a gold standard, nothing else matters. Like we can find a way to do a pressing exercise or whatever other thing they failed.
Yeah, I do not have a good score on the FMS.
And you're still
We
alive.
did
It's
what,
weird.
yeah, I still squat double my body weight. I hit a lifetime PR for a strict press and a clean and jerk
Mm,
at 41. How am I
yeah.
41? Um, yeah, even after
Yeah.
injuries to my shoulder,
Mhm.
still do a lot of stuff, pretty much everything pain free. So,
And so it's funny when you're saying that about the squatting because it's weird how just certain Instagram posts like stick in your brain for a long time. So when I was coming up with questions for you, I literally remember a time where you had, I want to say it was like patellar tendonitis or something like that. And I remember you saying like something in the caption of like squatting got me here and squatting is going to get me out of here. Again, it's
oh
weird
yeah,
that I remember that. That's been like probably 5 years since you posted that. But I just want to come back to that on kind of explain to people how you would just basically take the same exercise that hurt and find a way to bring it back to where it doesn't hurt anymore.
yeah. Do you want like my case in particular,
Yeah,
or
exactly. Yeah,
so mine was we had just like started doing that was when I was in Colorado, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was when I was in Colorado. Um, we just had a squat program, and the gym I was going to, like Tammy had dude. We got everybody there was strong.
Hmm.
Everybody there was strong. And we were doing a squat cycle, and I think we were doing like a 20 rep max, which is
She's
terrible.
fun. Yeah.
But then I think like the Open was coming up, and there was some event, and we started just like volume wise was just kind of through the roof. Um,
Hmm.
so I just kind of went back to the basics. I decreased the volume. I think that's something that most PTs or I would say strength coaches probably do a better job of keeping an eye on that. But like
Hmm.
asking somebody, what's your training program look like? how much
Mm,
volume have you been doing? And then on top of that, like I think I was mountain biking as well, and so I was like doing a lot of like knee extension.
mm,
Um, so I obviously backed off on some of the volume and started doing more isometric holds with heavier load, and that was, you know, if the viewers don't know, tendinopathies tend to respond very well to isometrics up front, and then heavy eccentrics, and you depending on the person, like the literature, I know what the literature says. It's eccentric is no better than concentric. And it's just like we get it.
yeah.
But oftentimes the isometric will have analgesic effect and make
Mm,
it so that you don't have the same symptoms, and then you load the tendon.
mm,
So for me, I decreased the volume, added isometric holding with I think it was with squats. I think I remember the post, and it was like I think it's like 70% of a one rep max
mm,
that I was holding, and that's heavy. I think at that
mm,
time I was squatting like 415, 410. 70% of that's a fair amount, but that's generally how I put people back. And it's one of
mm,
those things. It's really doesn't have to be that hard. Um,
mm,
you know, ask the right questions, put the fire out, load it. And then I think one of the spots where, I kind of struggled with was the reconditioning process. And
mm,
I think that's where a lot of people end up struggling is sweet, we can squat without pain, but I can't do a Metcon with 100 air squats without pain because I haven't
mm,
been doing it for the last, 6 weeks because I've been rehabbing. And then they jump back into it and miss that middle part of
mm,
there's like rehab, reconditioning, or rehab like reconditioning, return to sport, and
mm.
what ends up happening is it end up being like rehab, return to sport.
Yeah.
So the tissue tolerance doesn't like come into it doesn't really get developed, and that is a big area of issue for
And
people.
yeah, I feel like a lot of times too, that is so much of an ego thing because you say like, well, I used to do this workout at, whatever number of time or with whatever reps. And so they just, yeah, they rush back in because like I've got to be back to where I was. And like I said, that ramp up period doesn't have to necessarily be that long, but you should still have it. One of my online clients is a coach as well. And it's nice to see someone who wasn't dealing with it emotionally, where she had like a foot and a groin issue, and the other day, and she's been working with PT as well, and she went for a
Mhm.
walk, and I did 25 minutes, zero pain this time. This first time that's happened in months, and she literally actually like realized she was probably going to do too much. She just turned around and went home, and it was so refreshing to have somebody do that because so much of the time people are like, hey, this felt good. Now I'm just gonna keep going until it hurts again. And it's like, and then we just start this whole cycle again and realizing that like you did more than you did last time, you had no pain. It's like, let's come back and beat it again the following week and the following week and just
Yep.
keep ramping up. And yeah, then eventually you're back to where you were without having to set yourself back 17 times.
Yeah. Call those chronic rehabbers, and
Yeah.
those people are generally the people that never they do the cycle, and that's due to never getting that reconditioning phase back.
Hmm.
Um, that's the real thing. And you said ego, and I think impatience.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you do have to um, respect tissue healing time.
Hmm.
And people don't want that anymore because you can just inject some BP 157 and it cures everything, or you can
Yeah.
do stem cell therapy, and it's like
Yeah.
still takes time.
Yeah.
We haven't really figured out how to beat biology. So
No, exactly. And one of my clients recently was coming off of a back thing. That's where we kind of just I literally, when I had her find her new starting weight, it's like, just find a set of 5 that feels like that doesn't make you feel apprehensive about your back. It's like, sometimes it's just that simple. It's like, okay, now next week we'll do a couple more sets there. And then after like 3 weeks, we start to add weight and just, it's crazy how often that works as long as you just take the patience of that. Like I said, it's, maybe a couple extra weeks, but most people aren't training for their financial future, and they also don't have to have hit a certain weight by a certain day, or their business goes under. It's like, you're
right,
doing this for fun and for health. Like, who cares if it takes 6 weeks longer if you get there feeling better and don't have to just start the cycle over and over and over again.
right. I wish we should put that on repeat, rinse and repeat, because that's a common theme.
Yeah.
Um, I just thinking about the time and the financial loss for
Hmm.
just like paying for me or for a chiropractor or somebody, if people
Yeah.
would just literally just like, I don't have to get back faster.
Hmm.
I just got to get back completely.
Yeah. I mean, like I
I
said, I
heard
literally, go ahead.
Mike Isertel was, I was listening to one of his podcasts and he was talking about, like, I don't know why everybody's so like got a hard on for getting back faster. And he's like, I'd rather you get back not injured than
Yeah.
slightly less injured.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's sure. And to that, like, I try to tell, I try to educate people on this. It's like you're even when you get back too soon, you're still not training at the capacity at which you should be.
Yep.
So take a couple extra weeks and then just heal.
Yeah.
And then at some point you do have to like, sometimes you got to
Push.
send it and see
Yeah.
where you're at. You know, if the sun's shining, you got to make hay, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. It's like I think back to like with my shoulder issue that I had when I had some labral stuff. That it was nothing to do with technique. Like, I mean, who knows if my technique was perfect, but I was doing a shit ton of snatches at the time. I was just doing a lot of overhead work in general. And because I was trying to hit a certain goal of kettlebell snatches in 10 minutes. And it was a stupid arbitrary goal that meant nothing outside of just I decided this is what I was going to do and I did it. And I ran through my first cycle. Towards the end, I got close and I was starting to have some lingering shoulder stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm so close to
Hmm.
this. So I basically just reran the program, which was a shit ton of volume to run for, essentially whatever that ended up being, like 6 straight months, and ended up just with much longer term shoulder issues. And again, it was setting an arbitrary goal and then adhering to it no matter what, versus had I just taken a couple weeks, back down the volume, gradually ramped back up, I probably would have, who knows if I would have actually still hit the goal, but at least I wouldn't have created like months and months and years of lingering shoulder stuff just because like you said, I was just too impatient. I'm like, I've decided to hit this now. I'm gonna hit this now.
Yeah. Was that happen to be a strong first certification?
Well, so I'd already passed that, but I was like, so the back then you had to get 53 pounds, you had to get 100 reps in 5 minutes. And I'd beaten that because I did my certification. But I'm like, what if I did 200 in 10 minutes with a 62 pounder? Again, for whatever reason, it just sounded cool. And I just kept
Right.
pushing it. And again, looking at my program, it was just really imbalanced because I was also pushing chin ups at the time. I was also pushing Turkish get ups. So it's like, it was just a lot of overhead volume. It has
Right.
nothing to do with any of those exercises being bad exercises, but you shouldn't be pushing three massive overhead exercises at the same time. Like my program was, I hate to say the term imbalance because, we know now it's not like you have to like match your horizontal with your vertical or anything like that, but you probably just shouldn't push multiple vertical exercises at the same time. Like that's just probably not smart, especially because they were all high volume and they were all
Sure.
fairly high intensity. Like it was just bad programming. And it's, I'd like to think I'm a little smarter coach than that now.
Right. Did you write that programming?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Like
And you
it's like
learned,
it's like I tell my clients, like, I made the mistake so you don't have to.
right? Exactly.
Awesome. So thanks for coming on today, Scott. Where can our audience reach out to you if they were interested in what you guys offer?
On Instagram, we have an Instagram page. We're trying to be more active. We got
Hmm.
really busy for a little bit, but
Hmm.
physiofitbend
Cool.
.com. You can look at us there. But PhysioFitBend for Instagram. I think we have a Facebook page. Somebody runs that for us. I'm trying to make the main thing right now.
Yep.
But yeah, PhysioFitBend. You can kind of check us out, see what we're doing. We're doing a little bit more posting with our force plates and kind of showing people the hole we've been kind of missing as a profession. So
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
Yep.
Good seeing
See you
you.
guys next week.